Hi, Kerry here. I want to talk to you about an exit strategy. What is an exit strategy? Well, for the most part, when you move from employment to retirement, you are exiting one part of your life and entering a new part of your life. And it requires planning. A lot of people don't do any planning. They just figure, well, I'll just stop driving to work and my life will change. That's not a good way to go about it. You need a plan, and you need to consider what you want to do after you retire and how that's going to change your life, and then build accordingly. In my situation, and I was thinking about this, I had a unique situation, not so unique. I owned a business. I was an entrepreneur. I was a financial advisor. I was accustomed to making a lot of money. But I recognized, as a result of coming into contact with a gentleman by the name of Bruce Wright, I would say about 10 years before I retired. And he said, he came to a conference that I was at. I was a financial advisor. And he said, you need to teach your clients about an exit strategy, how they exit one part of their life to the next. And he said, in particular, if you are dealing with business owners, how are they going to go from a position of receiving a regular income and then sell that business? If you don't know this, most business owners don't have a plan. They don't consider that one day, maybe of their choice or maybe of not their choice, they don't show up anymore. And what are they going to do with that business? A lot of people just close the doors. They lock the doors, walk away, and what they have built is worth nothing. Bruce Wright wrote this book, and it's called The Right Exit Strategy. This taught me a lot. This is what probably created my retirement. Bruce Wright, it says, the right exit strategy, wealth, how to create it, to keep it, and to use it. It helped me a lot. And I want to explain to you how it helped me. As I said, I had a financial planning business. It was generating, it moved somewhere between $750,000 a year to $1 million a year. So it was creating a continual or yearly income. So in the industry, if you invest in investing, they value companies at a PE ratio, price to earnings. Well, that would say that my company, with a earnings of, let's say, $1 million a year, would be, if the PE ratio is 10, that it was worth 10 million. That's not real in the real world, because in a stock portfolio, you don't have to go to work every day. You have a structure that lives on. In most businesses, you're looking at somewhere between a 1.5 and a 2.5 multiple. So if you have a business that is generating $1 million a year, you might expect to sell it for $1.5 million to $2.5 million. Now, the issue then becomes, particularly if it's a small business, is where do you find somebody that has $1.5 or $2 million that can write you a check? You probably aren't. And so you then need to ask yourself, who am I going to sell this to? The logical answers are two. One of your employees that you trust, that you feel that you have learned they could carry on for you. Or second, one of your children who is interested in the business, and I really emphasize that, who is interested in the business, and you have hopefully been bringing them up in the business so that they can assume it. It's really nice if they have the same last name and your customers know them and familiar with them. In my business, how I built it to that was, as I was building, I realized I could build it a lot faster if I could acquire other people's businesses. Well, what I learned very quickly was that most people had no idea what their business was worth. So I would merely I wrote a letter to all the financial advisors of the Ameriprise system within Georgia and Alabama, where I had offices, and said, I'd be interested in buying your business. I'll, in fact, pay you to stay in the business for a year and transition it over to me and my staff, and then I'll pay you another year and a half after you leave. Well, they were happy to do that. What they didn't know in my business was we were changing from independent contractors to, to franchisees. And in that process, my payout could double. I could go from 45% to 90% if I had volume. Well, but by bringing them in to under my umbrella, I gained that volume. And so their $50,000 income turned into $100,000 for me, and I was able to pay them out. And then when I came time for me to sell, I actually sold it to my son, my daughter, and my, what would he be? He's my cousin, no, not my cousin, my brother's, my nephew. So I knew these people. I had brought them into the business for 2 years before I sold it to them. So I knew they knew it. I knew the potential was there and then I set it up for a 10-year payout. And there was some advantage to that. If I took the full payout, I was exposed to heavier taxes. If, on the other hand, I took it over 10 years and I wrote off the cost basis, all I was paying taxes on was the difference between the cost basis and what I sold it to them for, and the interest that I charged them. Now, within the contract, I said that if in fact they couldn't make payments, they had a leniency period in which those missed payments would accrue with interest, and I would be taken care of. As it was, it worked out fine. 2 of them paid me out in the exact amount, and 1 of them paid me out with a 2-year extension. And I was okay with that. So my message to you is twofold here. One, as a seller, create a plan. I highly encourage you to go down into the description and find the link to this book. It's not only about selling businesses, it's about exiting your career and moving into retirement as well. A very in-depth study of what you need to do to create a plan. Do you need a financial planner to do that? Do you need a business broker to sell your business? I would highly discourage that. A business broker is going to, he runs ads, and hopefully he finds somebody who is interested in buying your business. That's not going to work out too well. It has been my experience. It's better if you have an employee, or if you are 5-10 years away from retirement and you're a business owner, generate your own buyer. Say, I need to find someone that I can teach this business to, and then sell it to them when I'm ready to step aside. And I know them, they know my clients, and that's basically creating a plan. As I was thinking about this, I reflected back when I was probably about 26 years old. A friend of mine, Bruce, came to me and said, and I was at that time working for Polaroid, and said, hey, I know this man who has a maintenance chemical business. He's in his 60s and he wants to retire. And he has nobody, he and his wife run that business. And they make a good income, they have a steady clientele, and I think we could buy the business over time from the profits that the business generate. I look back at that and I say, what a mistake. Why didn't I go along with that? If I would have sat down with this man and Bruce and and we could have convinced him that we could give him an income for maybe 10 more years of his life, he would have jumped at it. Now, we may have had to come up with a down payment, and we both owned homes, and we could have borrowed some money against our houses, and we could have done that. I don't know how that would have changed my life. But what I'm saying, if you're a young person, and you know, and maybe it's even your uncle or your grandfather, go sit down with them and ask them, what are you going to do? Or if you're the grandfather and you got a grandson, shame on you if you don't go to your grandson and say, I have an opportunity that maybe you could take over my business for me and it would work for both you and I. I have another friend who in fact, we had this discussion, and he said his grandfather is very involved in real estate, owns a lot of rental real estate, both commercial and residential, and has no idea what he's going to do with the business. And I said, Jack, why don't you sit down with him and asking them that question? Ask him the simple question, do you have an exit strategy, Grandpa? And Grandpa's going to say, what do you mean? I mean, what if you wanted to retire? Who's going to take over your business? Are you training anybody to do that, Grandpa? No, I haven't. Would you be interested in it? Or if you're Grandpa, go to your grandson, go to your nephews, go to your children and say, I'm in a position where I want to sell my business at some point. Would you be interested in it? Let's sit down and let me tell you about the business and what I see the potential is, and I have some growth opportunities that maybe we can work on together, and you could end up owning this business. What a wonderful way. My Nita's father owned a metal plating business, and they put chrome plating on bumpers of cars back when cars had bumpers. They did the bumpers for Stutz Bearcat. They did it for a lot of automobile companies, and they did a lot of chrome work. It was a dirty business. I was a student studying business. He never came to me and asked me, Kerry, would you be interested in that business? I don't know that I would have been, but I would have liked to have been asked. I would have liked to sit down and learn about that business and see if there was an opportunity for me somewhere in the future. But the question never came up, and shame on me for not bringing it up. But that's my point here, is if you're an independent business owner, think about it. How are you going to transition that business such that it gives you a continuing income in your retirement? You've worked hard, you've built that asset, it has value. Figure out how to capture that value. And the value is, memorize these words, reoccurring income. And then after you focus on that, now think about mergers and acquisitions. Do you have any competition that you could go and acquire? That's what I did. I acquired 7 other financial planning practices over a 2-year period of time, and my reoccurring income skyrocketed. I then had a very saleable business. That's an exit strategy. This book sells for under $10 on Amazon. It might be the best $10 you spend. I'll put a link to it down in the description. Okay, my goal is to share my knowledge and my experience in retirement with you, and so that you make better decisions, more educated decisions of how the rest of your life is going to be. And I mean this sincerely. The second half of your life should be the best half of your life and the most profitable half of your life if you go about it the right way. Okay, I'll talk to you again tomorrow.